Hello, everyone in here and in the room. Can you chat possibly inside the chat room? I'm Rick. I'm one of the supervisors with code enforcement. We'll be getting started here pretty soon in a couple minutes. I'm just getting situated here with I'm running two devices, a laptop and a smartphone to be able to do both, show a presentation as well as speak to you guys, and you guys can see me as well. So we'll go ahead and give it a few minutes. We're a little early. Again, you are in the webinar for the code enforcement multifamily virtual inspection presentation. So I hope everyone's in the right place. Okay, let's see. So just flipping back and forth into the chat. Yes, the webinar will be available to view. This is being recorded, by the way. Kind of jumping ahead, I said I'd kind of wait, but yes, this presentation will be recorded and put online for future use or future viewing use if someone isn't available to make it or you want to catch up on something that you might have missed. So again, I'm just going to give some folks some more time to just log in, and I'll start with the presentation in just a moment here. So just again, for those of you that are joining the webinar, I'm seeing the attendees group grow. Again, I'm Rick Arnez. I'm one of the supervisors with the City of San Jose Code Enforcement. We're just giving everyone a few more minutes to kind of log in here and join us. I will be starting the presentation in just a moment. A few more minutes, going to give some more folks some more time to log in. Again, I'm working two devices here, a laptop and a smartphone. So I'm asking everybody kind of pose their questions in the chat room. My plan is to run through the presentation, the slides, and then from there, I'll go ahead and take your questions at the end as I'll go through a list in the chat room there. Okay, let's see here. We still got people trickling in here. So again, This is the webinar for the code enforcement multifamily virtual routine inspections. Again, I'm asking everybody if you have questions at any point in time during the presentation to pose your questions in the chat room. I plan to visit the chat room again once the presentation is over to address any questions that you may have. We're going to go ahead and get started here in just a moment here. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and get the presentation started. Thank you, everybody, for who's attending this code enforcement multi-housing virtual routine inspection. Let me just kind of make sure that you guys are hearing me. If there's any technical issues, anybody else? You guys can hear me okay? Just let me see a couple of people in the chat room just kind of acknowledge that there's no issues there with the sound or audio, things like that. Okay, I see a yes, it's okay. Okay. Just double checking. Okay, great. Just want to make sure. I didn't want to take off on the presentation and leave folks behind. So, okay, I'm closing the chat. So as I mentioned earlier, for those of you who are just still kind of joining the group, welcome everybody. This presentation is intended or primarily intended for property owners and property managers of multi-housing properties within the city of San Jose. My name is Rick Arnez. I'm a supervisor with the City of San Jose Code Enforcement Multifamily Division. It's myself and a couple other supervisors who make up the teams that go out into the buildings and units that you probably are familiar and accustomed to having folks doing side-by-side inspections. But due to COVID, obviously we've had to reinvent some things. And so this presentation is something that we have developed within the multifamily division that we want to share and expand upon, get your guys' feedback. We are very receptive to hearing from you guys and again, getting feedback of what's working for you guys in terms of getting your properties inspected and moving forward with, the business of housing folks in multifamily properties. So having that said, this presentation is being recorded. It is going to be available online on our main website, the Code Enforcement City of San Jose website. There'll be links further in the presentation that you guys can copy that down. Again, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. So, the first overall, I'm going to give you an overview of what we're going to go over, some of the topics. Let's see here, COVID-19 and the Code of Safe Practices. We're going to go over PPE controls. We're going to go over the actual inspection procedure from A to Z, the confirmation procedure, the inspection procedure, as well as the post-inspection procedure. So what is the Code of Safe Practices? It's quite a few things. It's quite a few elements that the City of San Jose has developed and is adhering to. It specifically addresses the hazards of COVID-19. So not going into too much of the science of what COVID-19 is, we're going to go over the safety protocols of what code inspectors are being required and basically trained to do on a day in and day out kind of basis, so that you guys have a familiarity and understanding of when you're meeting with an inspector that they are being safe, that they are being health screened and things like that. And also to provide safety protocols for property owners and managers, as well as tenants, anybody involved in this process. There's been times when an inspector will go into unit and obviously there's tenants and their family members are in there. So there's quite a few participants that's involved with these inspections. Okay, moving forward. The Code of Safe Practices is whenever it's possible to, to conduct inspections remotely or from the public right of way. So the actual routine inspection is kind of a two-part scenario or a two-part inspection. The inspector is going to do an exterior inspection, which really doesn't require, for example, a manager or owner to be there. You can, again, that's what this bullet here is highlighting, that the inspection can be done remotely or done via the public right of way, whichever is safe and convenient. And then we're going to dive into also, of course, the interior inspection of the part two of the routine inspection. And that's where this other item comes in, of limiting the number of people in the area during the inspection, limiting the contact with all surfaces. and also maintaining 6 feet of distance, and also wearing a mask throughout the inspection. So these code of safe practices are adhered to by our inspectors whenever they go out into the field, whenever they come into the office, that they're limiting their exposure, their risk, and they're maintaining their distances and wearing all their proper PPE protocols. Following up with some more details about the code of safe practices that the city has developed, the inspector will definitely confirm a contact person. So if you're an owner or a manager, you'll find some familiarity with an inspector, the assigned area inspector, either reaching out to you via phone call, email, or via mail, excuse me, to schedule something. So they're going to establish contact with you. So that's kind of step one. And then they're going to, once they've established contact, they're going to have one contact person basically, and make sure that they're not exhibiting, that contact person isn't exhibiting any kind of symptoms that are related to COVID-19. The inspector will then inform that contact person upon entering the unit, the office, the facility, or rec room, wherever you guys decide to meet, that all the occupants are to gather in one location away from the area of inspection. So what that means is if the manager and the inspector arrive at the residence, the unit, and they knock on the door, the tenant says, okay, please come in, and moves away 6 feet. And there might be someone playing video games in the living room and someone in the kitchen. The inspector will ask that all parties kind of gather in one area of the house in the kitchen while they inspect the living room, and then move throughout the home, conducting the rest of the inspection. And that can be done not necessarily in person, but this is all, again, virtually speaking, of course. The inspector will inform the contact person that there's only going to be a single point of contact for the code inspector to interact with. Basically, that kind of just limits any kind of confusion, misunderstanding. The code inspector is going to rely on you as the manager or owner to make sure that, for example, that you've checked in with the tenants of your building, that they're expecting, the inspector's coming today, roughly this time. We may come in, we'll let you know, we'll call you. Just that kind of coordination is going to be expected through one party, one person that the inspector is going to rely on to have that information ready to go. And again, during, whether it's an exterior or interior, done virtually, that everyone's going to remain 6 feet apart and social distancing with all occupants in the home. So if a manager's walking into a unit and there's multiple family members in the unit, that all those family members, again, kind of in the essence of protecting everybody's safety, respect the 6 feet distancing regulation there. And then the contact person as well. The contact person is going to be, again, either a manager, owner, or a tenant, whoever's allowing entry into the unit, that they shall be wearing a face covering suitable for the PPE during the inspection. Now, PPE, personal protective equipment, basically, both the inspector and the property owner manager should come prepared with the following items: an N95 mask, disposable gloves, safety glasses, hand sanitizer, and disinfectant wipes, as well as any household member present at the inspection should also be wearing a mask as well. The inspector, if someone isn't cooperating in a unit and just refuses to wear a mask, may necessarily end the inspection, but may say, can we, we'll just end this inspection in this unit, and may, ask the manager or owner, can we go to another unit and continue, start another inspection, and just because we couldn't finish this one over here because somebody didn't want to follow the PPE protocol. So again, as an owner and manager, having a conversation with the tenants beforehand and communicating things, messages like this, that we're having a scheduled routine inspection. Please have some masks. If you don't have them, this is where you can go and get them or obtain them. Or I don't know if you guys have the ability to provide them to your tenants. There's certain, I think, county programs, I'm not familiar, but a while ago, the county was still providing some PPE equipment to civilians that needed that. So that's something to think about. And if anyone has questions about that, again, I can follow up offline or outside of the meeting here. Okay, so what to expect prior to the inspection. Excuse me. So we'll go over that real quick here. So here's a little bit about the confirmation procedure. I'm going to go over basically all these components: the scheduling, preparation, confirmation, and inspection. So when it comes to the scheduling, as I mentioned, the inspector will call, send, or email the owner or manager contact, basically reach out for contact to schedule the inspection. That's something that's not necessarily new. Just free advice or just free kind of piece of information. If you're thinking about, well, do they have my correct email? Do they have my correct phone number? Definitely want to reach out to the MH program at San Jose ca.gov email address. Again, that email will be further down in the slides. To say, hey, I'd like to update my mailing address or my email address or my phone number so that you're not missing those types of calls if you're waiting for your routine inspection, okay? So moving along with scheduling, once contact is established, you've received a letter, you've received an email, a phone call, whatever, the inspector is going to offer you two options, okay? Option 1A is the routine inspection be conducted with the owner manager via Zoom, okay? Option B is going to be the inspection is conducted with the manager and the tenant via Zoom. In other words, if you're in a situation where the tenant says, I don't want anybody coming into my unit, I don't care if they're the manager or the owner, this is my unit, I'm not coming, no one's coming in, I don't trust anybody, it's COVID out there. We are seeing that, we are hearing that, and we are trying to, this is the reason why we're taking these mitigation procedure steps, is to have the tenant participate in the Zoom call. Now, between the scheduling and the preparation, the inspector is going to, as the next preparation step states here, is going to set up all the details. If you have tenant in unit number 1 who's willing to participate and everyone else is saying, no, the manager can come on in, the inspector is going to arrange for everyone who's willing to participate via Zoom to send them the invite so they obviously can participate in the Zoom inspection. And then to make sure on the side here, which is preparation down below, this is the side where, you know, the owner and manager would be hopefully qualified. Some are just saying someone who's knowledgeable with how to use the smartphone apps and the Zoom. It's pretty standard. I'm sure you guys made it here. You'll be able to navigate that app, no problem. So once confirmation is made, the inspector is going to go over the safety protocols, the county mandated safety protocols for COVID-19. They're going to make sure that everything's adhered to prior to coming out. That may be a phone call from them prior to them coming out, maybe the day before. Some inspectors may call you, you know, the day of, and say, hey, I'm headed out that way, or I'm in the parking lot. Is everybody ready to go? Got their masks, gloves, and sanitizer and things like that. So that confirmation kind of conversation is going to happen, and there may be some developments that you may need to share with the inspector. For example, the tenant that agreed to do the virtual Zoom inspection has declined now. Something transpired in the last 24 hours. Things like that are going to happen. So having that said, I mean, that's, again, another opportunity to have a conversation, have a dialogue with the inspector to kind of button down those kinds of loose ends. And then the actual inspection, and we're going to dive into a little bit more of this in more detail, but basically when it is time for the inspection, just like this meeting here, you're going to get a reminder, you're going to go to the Zoom app. Hopefully your phone's charged up. Now I make a point to mention that proper lighting and having a flashlight or opening, for example, like windows, things like that. I'm going to go into detail more on that down the presentation, but that's going to be key. That's going to come in something later as for helpful tips that I'm going to bring up with you guys. And then the inspector is going to guide you through, as the owner manager is going to guide you through the inspection process. Some of you who are familiar with this process in the past prior to COVID, it's more or less going to be the same thing. You're going to arrive at the unit door, you're going to knock, or someone's going to let you in, or and then it's going to be whatever, usually the living room on the left, you're going to start there maybe, or maybe you start with the kitchen on the right, and you work basically identifying every room, starting with the address first. I should have backed up and mentioned that. But identifying each room, this is the kitchen and this is what we're going to see. And I'm going to go over a little bit more detail on how the inspection is going to go. So let me move to the next slide here. Okay, so the actual inspection procedure. So as I mentioned, Zoom is very user-friendly. It's going to send you a reminder. You're going to log into the Zoom app for the scheduled meeting. Once that meeting begins, the code inspector is going to introduce himself and tell you who he is. You're going to be able to see him That's something that that you can expect is from our inspectors, that you're going to be able to see them via the video on the screen of the smartphone or device that you're using. So beginning the inspection is going to basically start off by verifying the address. We are at building A, unit 1, and here's the address, and then you're going to proceed to go ahead and move forward with the inspection. Now, the inspection is basically going to be the inspector on the other end of the phone, more or less kind of going through a checklist. Okay, show me the living room. Is there any issues? Does the heater work? Is the heater located in here? It's going to be the same kind of procedural steps as that. And they're going to go through each living space, the kitchen, the bathroom, bedrooms. I'm trying to think of other areas that within the unit, there's multiple bedrooms, things like that, multiple bathrooms. Again, if there's any questions during that, you can definitely, have that interaction or have that exchange with the inspector, because they may say, oh, wait, can you back up? What is that over there? Is that, is that window working, or is that window operable? And then there's going to be the post-inspection, what to expect. And usually most managers and owners are accustomed to having a conversation and a dialogue with once the inspection has completed. Usually there's some kind of dialogue that takes place, and you say, hey, I know, unit 1, didn't have any issues, but unit 2, there was, this and this that needs repairs. I'm going to send you an inspection notice. What kind of time frame, is good for you to get these repairs made. And it's basically the same usual protocols for the follow-up actions. Okay, I'm going to move forward here. So these are some of the things that I was mentioning earlier about tips for the inspection. These are very, they don't seem like they're super important, but they actually make a big difference and can help, say, speed up the process, but make the process more efficient when it comes time for your inspection. So one of the first tips is that we have for owners and managers is to make sure that the unit is well lit. Open windows, open the shades, turn on the lights. As I mentioned in the slide before, bring a flashlight or have one handy that you can show, because you're going to open the bottom cabinetry for the sink and make sure there's no leaks. You may need something, for example, have a step ladder to view hard to reach areas like the range hood or the exhaust vents. Have a broom handle handy to test the smoke and carbon detectors within the units. Be familiar with the point of view of the camera. I noticed that when there's some folks who are, we were training with some of our inspectors or whoever, we had some test cases. Folks were kind of like not paying attention to where they're pointing the camera, and you're having the inspector, like, can you move it to the left? Can you move, okay, a little up. So just being familiar with the point of view of what you're showing the inspector, that definitely has helpful for them. And also trying to keep the camera still and stable. So if you have like a little, say, selfie stick or a little tripod or something that you can hold and kind of give you better angles, definitely, take advantage of that. Okay, so again, post-inspection procedure. Once the virtual inspection is completed, the owner, manager, and or tenant will have an opportunity to speak with the inspector regarding the inspection that just took place. And again, that's kind of something that I think everyone is accustomed to, having that conversation, getting the inspector's feedback about the inspection that just took place before it's actually a notice or anything like that is issued in the mail. And the inspector will inform all parties of what to inspect. Like as I just finished mentioning, an inspection notice will be issued. I'll come back, we'll do another virtual compliance. That's another component that will follow up, and we'll just come back and make sure that, the window seal was fixed or sealed again via Zoom, and then, they can close that violation and close hopefully the end of that routine inspection case. Now, here's some of the areas that I mentioned just in terms of presentation summary, where you can find some more details about the COVID-19 Code of Safe Practices at the City of San Jose's home website. It's clearly there labeled in big advertising banner type. You can just click and find out. We went over PPE controls, the confirmation procedure. The inspector is going to present you with option A and option B. Again, briefly, option A is going to be the inspection conducted via the manager and just the inspector via Zoom, or option B, where a tenant will kind of help, walk the inspector and the manager through a routine inspection of a particular unit. We went over the actual inspection procedure, as well as the post-inspection procedure follow-up action. Now, at this time, as I mentioned, if you had any questions, go ahead and post those in the chat box. I'm going to go there in a moment. Again, if you prefer to call and have speak to someone over the phone, our clerical staff are working remotely, but they are still answering telephone calls, and we'll be able to get you some general information. Now, if you have a detailed question, you say, my account this, or my property, something very, very specific pertaining to your property, you can, again, this is kind of the catch-all for everything else, is the MH program at sanjoseca.gov. Again, there's many city staff that are on that email who observe that. And if your question is related to an accounting question, someone from accounting will reach out to you and contact you. If you're calling about a routine case that's still open from months and months ago, or from before COVID, or something like this, old history kind of case information, you can, a code supervisor like myself, and say, okay, I'll have the code inspector follow up with you regarding your question, your concern about the violation or this or that. So having said that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the chat room. Give me a moment here. I'm going to scroll to the top, and I'm going to start with, let's see here. Let's see here, this is from Andrew. A tenant in my fourplex in San Jose always wants minor repairs, but claims it's habitability issues. In that situation, can I ask code enforcement to come in and inspect and provide recommendations? So a couple of pieces of advice on that one. One, I would suggest just opening a line of communication, and even emphasizing, if you're not familiar with like having a regular normal channel of communication, I would say go over to the next level in terms of making contact via email, phone, or letter, sending them an article in the mail, a letter in the mail saying, hey, I'm checking in all my tenants. Is there any issues that I can address? Let me know. Let's work together and figure that out. I would suggest going that route, just a general communication effort. Secondly, tenants will call the city of San Jose and open a code complaint case. And the procedure, the protocol for the inspector at that point would be to follow up with that tenant and say, well, can you Zoom, show me, can I verify via Zoom if there's a true violation? And if they can confirm that violation via the Zoom, then the same procedures apply. The inspection notice will be issued and things like that. So to answer your question, Andrew, I would try, developing some type of communication with your tenants, and then also trying to develop some type of repair where, again, maintaining distance and protocols and things like that, so everybody is safe. If that didn't answer your question, pose another question at the bottom. We'll see what we got here on the next one here. Marley, is there any printing materials to help with the notes? Definitely go check out the code enforcement's website. Within that, on the left, I'm going off my memory here, the left side of the web page on the code enforcement homepage is a multifamily tab. Once you're in the multifamily tab, there's some FAQs, what to expect, how to prepare for routine inspections. I'm just, going off the top of my head of what's there that's helpful for everybody. And we're always, from what I understand, updating that material monthly. So there's new information, there's a newsletter that you can stay attached to. There was some again, prior to COVID, there was an opportunity for people to walk into City Hall, and on the first floor, the information area was a whole wall of informational flyers, literature that you could take home with you, and talk to someone at a desk as well. But right now, City Hall is still closed to the public, so that's kind of out of the question. So I hope I answered your question there, Marley. This question is from Eric. It says, do duplexes and fourplex multi-units require this? Or a threeplex or more? I'm again, what the actual code section says for the city of San Jose. If you're a threeplex or more, so that means 3 units or more, you are required by law to obtain a residential occupancy permit that needs to be renewed annually. More information about that and those basic kinds of questions on the MH FAQs on the website online that I just mentioned previously. Okay, so moving along, let's see here. This is another question from Andrew, it looks like, again. Tenant makes it very difficult to access her unit, even for landlord. If she refuses the city's inspection, what can the landlord do? Well, I'm gonna take a drink of water on that one. It's a good question. I would encourage just, again, communication, the emphasis that, if you can demonstrate that you're trying your best effort, documenting your best effort, that you're trying to gain access for their benefit to help their well-being, that you're cooperating with that. And then again, if the City of San Jose code inspector is involved in a case, whether it's a complaint case or a routine case, they're going to reach out to you and they're going to understand if you could show them that, hey, I went to their home, I tried to do this, I tried to, get this fixed, I offered this, I offered them that, and still nothing. The inspector is going to work with all parties. I mean, this is a new difficult time that everybody's going through, tenants, managers, owners, as well as the city inspector. So I don't have a specific answer, do this, and this is going to work for you. It's just, you really have to be sensitive to obviously the safety concerns there. And do your best, document your efforts, and we'll treat each case by case on a case by case scenario. So I hope that that's good, helpful information. If you want to, again, discuss your case in more detail, any specifics, again, email the MH program and we can follow up, offline. All right, let's see here. This looks like this is from Sienna. Is N95 required or any face mask? N95 is preferred, but we understand that some folks don't have access to that. Again, check out the county's website. There, again, I recall I have referred some folks there in the past and found success in terms of finding specifically N95s. Now that might have been a while ago. They might not be limited supply. It may not be offered anymore. But if a face mask definitely is required at some point of some kind. Yes. Okay, this one's from Richard. What if I see some tenants are sick and test positive with COVID? If someone's exhibiting symptoms, I would definitely, for your safety, keep your distance. Hopefully you're wearing a mask and limiting your contact and exposure. I'm trying to just kind of delve into the depths of what we kind of specifically mean. The city specifically can't compel somebody to get a COVID test or a COVID vaccine, to that matter, in terms of a routine inspection. So I'm not sure exactly what it is you're kind of referring to, what to do about it. Again, just kind of encourage them to isolate, send them a notice, a notification saying like, hey, we all want to make sure that we're respecting the safety code protocols and the safety of others in our complex, our building, and make sure that these and provide the list of the set of code of safe practice of 6 feet of distance, masks, sanitizing, things like that. Okay, this one is from Guramurthy. I mispronounced that. I apologize. Does the city provide PPE to tenants and property managers as you guys are mandating them? As I mentioned, the city of San Jose is not. The county at one point was, and I think I went over that a few times as to follow up there. And if they're no longer doing that, I do apologize. At one point they were. So I'm not familiar with what their activities that is now. Okay, this one looks like it's from Crystal. I have reached out over the email several times and no one ever responds. So to kind of answer your question there, Crystal, I would just suggest pose your when you, and this is to everybody as well, when you're posing a question or a comment or a concern, please be very specific. Include, for starters, your property address, maybe your residential occupancy permit number. Some people like to provide an APN, your parcel number, something to identify your property, for one. Number two is specifically your issue or concern. This is about my routine inspection from 2017. This is about a complaint case in 2020. This is about X, Y, and Z. When you kind of make it more detailed and kind of break it down in what your specific concern is, as I mentioned, the folks that are on that MH program email is a group of again, city employees ranging from housing department to accounting to code enforcement to clerical staff who update your address, and there's a variety of folks. And once somebody knows that's in their wheelhouse, they're going to take that email and they're going to reply back to you. So I do apologize that you didn't get any kind of response on that, but try that approach, Crystal, and I'm pretty sure you'll have success. This one looks like Eric says, can tenants decline this inspection? As a tenant myself, I find this is a huge invasion of privacy. Absolutely, tenants can refuse the inspection. We can't compel them, folks, to open up and let us in and to do an inspection. This is something that that the owners and managers are held accountable for by obtaining the residential occupancy. That's what they're paying for, is to have a city official come into their home to let them know that their building, that their units that they're renting to tenants is considered safe by the city of San Jose standards. So that's what this in the sense, in a nutshell, is really all about is making sure that we have safe housing for the tenants in the city of San Jose. If a tenant wants to decline for whatever reason, we respect that. We will move on to the next unit or to another building or whatnot. We will try to work around that. We want to make sure that everybody within the unit is safe. So Eric, I hope I answered your question there. This one is from Ed. Do you need to have a tenant there? If the tenant provides permission for us to go in, should you still proceed? We do need the tenant to be there, absolutely. We've had some scenarios where it's almost like, say, mutual, where the tenant says, I'll leave and you guys just do your thing. The tenant needs to be present. We don't want any kind of issues in terms of manager being there alone or a tenant being, whatever. We want to make sure that everyone's, secure and safe in terms of when the inspection is being conducted. So yes, the tenant does need to be there, an adult tenant as well. I should specify that. Okay, and this one looks like this is from Richard. What if tenants tell me they have COVID? Do I still have to go in the unit and do the inspection and put myself at risk? Can the inspector just go in himself instead? So if let me just answer, that sounds like a two-part question. One, if someone in the unit has COVID and you don't want to go in, then you don't have to go in. I mean, it's just plain and simple as that. I mean, no one's forcing you to go in there. The inspector is going to try and conduct the routine via virtual Zoom. So if they can't do that, then we'll, like as I mentioned in the previous question, we'll just move on to the next unit and try to get another tenant that will allow entry. This looks like D. Hernandez. I'm sure if they have a COVID, no one will go in. The point of notifying the tenants in advance is to get those answers. If no different than visiting your doctor, they ask that COVID question before you go in. I mean, you don't want to ask for someone's like medical history or background or a doctor's note kind of thing. But as owner or manager, I mean, you can definitely ask, does anybody experiencing symptoms X, Y, and Z? I mean, you can just ask that for your own safety and well-being. And there's no, if they can either answer you or not answer you. It's just pretty much as simple as that. This one looks like this is from Rita. I have tenants who refuse to wear a mask when a service technician, for example, plumber, enters the unit. They claim it is their home and they don't need to wear a mask. I don't feel safe entering the unit. So at that point, that is a challenge. And I've had some inspectors who have presented with cases and situations like that for my myriad of issues. What we try to do is have the inspector basically have a conversation over the phone or email or however they can have a discussion and discuss the issues of how we need to get this resolved. We need to get this compromised. And typically, it's just the disconnect usually takes place between the tenant and the manager owner, where there's just like, well, who's coming in? Are you sending somebody that I don't know? Or who's, if you break all those kinds of questions down and kind of answer all those questions and kind of hopefully take away the mystery of like, who's coming, when is it happening? We just need to do this in this area of the unit. Can you please prepare or anticipate for this, and this to happen? Some tenants have actually kind of, oh, okay, well, now that I know what to expect, in full detail, they usually kind of cooperate. If not, if you're still getting that resistance, again, I'm suggesting, a couple of things. One is to document your efforts that you're trying to get in, and on this date, I tried to get, talk to this tenant about this issue so that we know that you're keeping a track history or entry, a log registry of your attempt to try to repair the issue. And the city can't penalize you for trying to do that, right? And they're going to definitely try to encourage the tenant to try to cooperate with all parties. And we're going to, try to do that with everybody, to try to get everybody to, you want the problem solved, let's all work together. So this one's from Gurumurthy again, I apologize if I mispronounced your name there. Ladder tripod will be provided by city as you guys are recommending them. I wish they don't even provide me with that. No, that's why I suggested a broom handle. Everyone's has something like that around, broom handle, mop handle, something that you can just, again, reach up high. I personally don't have that difficulty. I can actually stand and reach and touch the button if I need to with gloves on. But if you find whatever you can, you get your best guess is mine. I just try to make a helpful tip with the tripods or the step ladder. Okay, this one's from Richard Lee. What if tenants are uncooperative and won't let anyone go inside the unit? again, my emphasis would be to document your efforts that you're trying to, correct the whatever issue that they're calling out, that my sink is leaking. Okay, well, I'll send a plumber, and you know what I mean, and try to accommodate and as best as you can. If they still refuse, again, and the city's San Jose inspector is involved in the case and is here and is talking to you, you guys are going to be working together to try to get that, again, that level of cooperation from a cooperative tenant. And usually communication and explaining, breaking things down definitely helps. This one's from, looks like Martin Bell. Where are we supposed to get the required N95? I definitely know, as I mentioned, the county was supplying those. Again, I'm not, definitely sure if they're still doing that. Online, things like that. I would definitely check in with the county health department. They can, they're the ones issuing the health order. They're definitely the ones who could definitely steer you in the right direction for the N95 mask. The city of San Jose is only providing the mask for the inspectors themselves to be prepared for these inspections. This next question is from, looks like Ed. Just to confirm, say only one tenant allows us access to the apartment. Will that affect the inspection? Well, it depends. Are we one unit out of like 10? Or are we like one out of like 4 units? There is and the reason why I say that is because there is a specific percentage of units that need to be inspected. Depending on your tier status, the percentage is going to vary. So, at this point in time, it's to say slim pickings of who's going to let you in. Maybe one out of, if you have a 6-plex or a 5-plex, maybe one person out of the whole building may do that. And so that's something that, again, on a case-by-case basis, say, hey, I'm working with the inspector and we hit this roadblock, and we'll try to do what we can to try to get either more inspections, or maybe we'll pick up and revisit, keep the case open or something, and revisit, in another week or something, or, the following week or something like that, kind of pick up from there. Let's see here. This one, how much of a time frame will you give us for these inspections? So we recently rolled out this virtual routine inspection via Zoom, roughly approaching about, I'd say, 2 months now. We have had, we call it some positive experiences and things like that, where it's just basically a slow roll. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this webinar, is to kind of put managers and owners at ease in terms of understanding, at least from the city's point of view, what it is we're going out and doing, what, kind of equipment we're bringing, and things like that. If we're going to do an exterior, we're going to do something like that, and how we're thinking of everybody involved to be safe during this procedure. So the time frame, as an owner or manager, I say in theory, but you should know when you're due for routine. Based on your tier, it's going to be every 6, 5, or 3 years. And again, if you're not familiar with that, the FAQs on the website will definitely break down when you're going to be due. And you should have records, again, of when your last inspection was done. If you're not aware, you can definitely email the MH program to find out when that is. But basically, as I mentioned in the presentation, you will receive either a phone call, email, or a letter, whichever your last preference of mode of contact was in your last routine is probably going to be the way they're going to reach out to you again. If you're a new owner, and this is my first time around, this is my first go at everything during COVID, definitely reach out to the MH program and make sure that your contact information is up to date, so that the letters or emails aren't going to the previous owner. I've seen that happen, and that's can be fixed, but it's the owner's responsibility to make sure that they update the information correctly here. What the tier of our property is currently at, and does the top tier best allow no inspection? So you can find out, anyone can find out what tier they currently are by going to the MH program website. Within there, there's a link that's referred to as the MH roster. Now, once you open it, it's basically every multifamily property in the city of San Jose, and it'll list the address and it'll list further other information. But one of the pieces of information in there is going to be the current tier. Now, there's only 3 tiers. This is more of a virtual inspection kind of, minded kind of presentation, but I will I will advise that everybody, if you're not familiar, you want more information about the tiers system, definitely go to the FAQs, definitely go to that webpage. It breaks it all down, the frequency, the percentage, Um, in terms of the frequency of how often the inspector will come out for the routine based on the tier, how much percentage of the building needs to be inspected based on tier, all that stuff, all the fees break down by tier is going to be there. How to move up or down the tier system is going to be there. Okay, so hope that answers your question there. This one's from Rita. It says, I also have tenants who have not been paying rent under protection of the eviction moratorium. They will not allow anyone into the units because they fear eviction. They are non-cooperative. So I hear you. I understand your frustration. I can tell you that you are not alone and that the city of San Jose will work with you. And right now, we're doing what we can to support and help and educate everybody, all owners, managers, as well as tenants. And again, the message that I'm conveying is to communicate with your tenants, to let them know that you have this obligation by law, for one, and two, it's basically in their own tenants' well-being, in their safety, their own health and well-being, to make sure that the unit that they are living in, even if they are acknowledging they have a housing deficiency, a window that won't close, or the heater that won't work, or something, that they are going to, have that addressed, that you're willing to address that with them. And I mean, I would hope that they would, hopefully turn and be cooperative at that point. Okay, moving along here. How often is the routine inspection done annually or any other in line? Again, I think I answered that question about how often. The frequency based on tier, again, is found on the website online. What I haven't mentioned before about your tier question is basically tier ones are going to be doing, but everybody should be doing it as well, is basically self-annual inspections. If you really want to be a tier one, if you really want to be on top of your property, you're going to go out and do, I would even suggest, biannual and annual inspections of your own property to make sure you know what's going on. You know what I mean? You want to make sure that there's no blight, that the exterior is good, and that you're listening to your tenants and, trying your best to address their issues and concerns. All right, let's see here. Morning. Will it all be by Zoom? Yes. Whether option A or B, it will all be by Zoom. Yes. And then it looks like we have Elohim. Let me see here. Sorry, I meant how much of a notification will you give us? Well, that first contact that you're going to get from the inspector is going to be, hey, it's time, call me back. They're going to basically try to establish contact with you. They're going to want to ideally get you on the phone or via email to some way that they can kind of back and forth conversate about what works for you. I mean, next week, 2 weeks from now, I mean, there's going to be that flexibility. They're going to accommodate you guys. They just want to get you guys more or less on the book scheduled and then kind of proceed down the steps of the preparation and then the inspection process. Let's see here. Are you offering in-person inspections? Multifamily specifically, not necessarily. I mean, we're doing exterior basically, and depending on the type of situation, again, case by case scenario, I don't have any specifics examples that I can give you. It's not a yes and it's not a no. It's just, again, based on case by case. We are going to try and resolve everything we can. So that's the inspector's position or point of view wise, virtually. We're going to all try to resolve it all virtually to keep everybody's safety in mind in that sense. So if that's something that helps answer that question. Let's see, from Martin. What is the lifespan of this policy? Is it tied to the county tier status anyway? Good question. Yes, it is. We are, again, kind of diving off the virtual inspection topic, but yes, we are strictly adhering to the county COVID order. And a lot of folks kind of, it's understandable that folks can be misunderstood or kind of misunderstand them, I should say, that it's the city of San Jose and that it's code enforcement that, why can't you just lift the COVID order? When actually it's, again, I have a lot of conversations with the county that issued that order and we are following it. And in fact, another level, we have been through the course of COVID, lending code inspectors to do a variety of other jobs, helping the county kind of achieve their goals in terms of their tier status and the county order. So I don't have a question. I don't think anyone has a question as to when, things will go back to normal. I don't have anything like that at all. Marley, you're very welcome. This one's from Rita. PPE, do you require N95? Can you have other types of masks such as cloth masks? Okay, yes, answer that question, you can. N95 is, again, based by the county health officials, deemed as the best source, mask that you can utilize to prevent the COVID, but other masks are also effective as well, definitely. This is from on. When is the Zoom inspection start? How many % will be inspected? Is it all units? As I mentioned, I'm going to blast right through this on because I definitely went over this a few times. Go to the MH website online. It'll tell you based on what your tier is by looking at the roster. You can look, once you figure out what your tier is, you can figure out what your cycle is going to be, when your inspection routine cycle is going to be, I should specify. And then based on that, you can be able to see as well the percentage. It's not all the units, it's just a percentage of your building. Okay, moving on. I have 40 units. How many will you inspect? It depends on your tier. So you take your 40 units, you go to the MH website, and based on whatever tier you have, hopefully you know what tier you are. Again, if you don't, check out the roster, it'll tell you. And you can do the math on whatever tier you are, percentage of 40 units would be as your answer. And the inspector will definitely tell you. We have, not necessarily your previous history, but your property records will tell us, you have 40 units. And so they're tier, X, we're going to need to see 20, or we're going to need to see, however many that they'll tell you for sure. So there's some details. The answer is they can refuse and there's nothing we can do. Well, D. Hernandez, I'm sorry, I like I said, I can relate, but I can definitely understand. And, again, I encourage you to, if you have or haven't already, speak to someone in the housing department. A couple staff from the housing agency are on the MH program. They can help you as an owner or manager, as well as I would encourage you to check in with the county and you see if they have a response team for folks who are basically abiding by or cooperating with the COVID order. I don't know what their parameters are, but they are the enforcement of the COVID regulations. This is from Brian. Let's see here. For Zoom inspection, should the inspector give us a specific date, time, and appointment and window time? Absolutely. As I mentioned, Brian, these inspectors will reach out to you. They're going to make contact and call you, their point of contact, and they're going to rely on you to everything from scheduling to date, time, the number of units, making sure before the inspection starts that you're ready to go, that you yourself as an owner manager have masks, gloves, sanitizer, that the tenants have been notified, that the tenants have masks, gloves, sanitizer, and that everybody, all parties are ready to go. So we're approaching 3:50 right now. Zoom is going to kick us all out in about 10 minutes. I'm going to continue with as many questions as I can. I'm going to just go ahead and just start by saying, or at this point in time by saying, if I don't get to your question, please pose your question to the MH program at sanjoseca.gov. And from there, we will be able to follow up with you. Okay. Let's see here. Warren. Are code inspectors fully inspected? If not, many tenants will not. Your question specifically, but as I mentioned, it sounds like a few times prior, to hopefully answer this would be to the inspector is going to make contact. The inspector is going to tell you how much percentage, how many specific units they're going to need to inspect via Zoom, and you're going to guide you through it. So in terms of those details, you can definitely have a conversation with the assigned area inspector about that. The inspection will be conducted via inspector in person in each part of the room or by virtual inspection with Zoom meeting style, so the inspector will not be present. The inspector will not be present for the inspection. It's going to be conducted via virtual Zoom, using the Zoom app. And that's what this training was all about how we schedule that, how we conduct that, and how we go from room to room via the chat, via the Zoom app, sorry. Can someone from the city have a dry run going through a sample case? We have, before we rolled out this this virtual policy, this virtual procedure, I should say, we definitely did some other cases. I say trial cases, but basically they were trial cases. They were cases that were something that was already basically in the works. In other words, there was already an identified complaint. And I'll give you a real clean example. An example that I remember the trial stages was somebody's property they installed a garage, a shed, a storage shed, obviously without permits. The issue was either you want to keep it, obtain a permit and get it finalized, or remove it, right? Those are the two options. And so the owner was able to, via Zoom, log in, go out to the area where the inspector identified where the shed was. It had been removed. It was been verified by the inspector. Case closed. And so that was kind of more, like I said, more simplistic kind of violations and things like that we were able to kind of sample. See, Sharon, is no one there but a manager? Why do I need to have a mask? So if I think I understand your question, Sharon, I think for example, if the unit is vacant, yeah, then I wouldn't say you need a mask. If the unit is occupied, definitely gonna need a mask, all parties. Aster, what can the owner do if the tenant is not paying rent? So of course, is refusing contact or access period the last year. We, the owners, are at a loss. There's some, like I said, there's a couple questions about this. Again, I'm very familiar. I speak with a lot of owners, managers regularly about, the frustration that you as an owner manager are experiencing about the lack of rent, the lack of cooperation, the lack of, as I said, cooperating with getting repairs made or just cooperation in general. And like I said, depending on the nature of the situation, we will try to help you. The code inspector assigned to your area will try to do his best to, get the tenant to cooperate, to get hopefully some kind of resolution. Again, based on a case-by-case scenario, we'll try to help you the best we can, refer you to the right folks. Again, there's some great people who have some information and resources in the housing department via that MH program email link. And definitely check out the county's website as well for owners and managers dealing with those issues. Are all inspectors fully vaccinated? I couldn't tell you. I don't know. Basically, I think comes down to more of like a HIPAA situation. So if somebody wants to divulge that they're vaccinated, hey, I got the first or I got the second shot or whatever shot, that's their own kind of prerogative if they want to share that. Inspection equals permit. I'm not sure what kind of question that is. So how can we be held accountable for tenants for the refusal to allow us entry? They are having legitimate concerns regarding their health. So I'm curious as to what kind of accountable you're referring to. Is there, again, open code enforcement case on your property? If there is, the inspector would be working with you as well as the tenant, like as I mentioned just a moment ago, to obtain some type of cooperation and resolution to whatever issue that it may be. So I'm not sure exactly what your question may be, but again, if you have an open case, definitely follow up with your inspector, your area inspector. In many cases, a unit may not have anyone home as they are at work or school. It's not reasonable to require a tenant to be in the unit during the inspection. As in my experience, it's been personal preference. Typically, our inspectors will not enter if someone's not home. We haven't really been presented too many with that. I can tell you that there's just an uneasiness, I think, on many people's, whether that's the owner or manager or the inspectors, part that, that the tenant should be present, or the representative of the tenant should be there. Are the inspections random units or the entire building? They are definitely, I'll say random, but they're not the entire building. So again, this question relates to the percentage based on the tier. So if you're at tier 2, we're only going to inspect so many of these units, as opposed to if you're at tier 3, it's going to be a more unit inspection. So if tenant works and gives permission to the owner, is it still required to have a tenant present? There seems to be a lot of, I guess you could say, feedback about that. I'm not, like I said, I don't want to speak for a tenant that's like, yeah, sure, come on in. Maybe some kind of confirmation beforehand so that the inspector feels that kind of, I won't say comfortable, but at least that kind of assurance is given. I'm going to take that question and I'm going to go ahead and pose it to the division deputy director and see what, how she would want us to proceed with something specific like that. Because again, we have to be mindful of everyone's safety, well-being, and again, privacy as well. Would hate to have some kind of scenario where like, yeah, well, the manager said it was okay, and then the tenant comes home, I did not say it was okay. I don't want to put anybody in the he said, she said. So it's kind of tricky, sticky territory. And again, we'd have to explore that one a little bit further. So do I need documentation from tenants if they want to decline inspection, so I can show code enforcement and get them to stop pestering me about inspecting the unit? If you want, I would just say any kind of documentation is always better than no documentation, because then it just helps support your case. It helps support your position. It helps paint the picture for the inspector to let them know that you've been trying. And not only have you been trying on this day, this day, this day, and here's my receipt, here's my invoice, here's my, appointment canceled, notification or whatever it may be. Absolutely. So whatever documentation that you can keep, absolutely. Can we use an aerosol tester specific for CO2 and diet instead of a broom? Yeah, the inspectors do use that. I know that they were going away from those spray cans and just using like the stick method kind of thing. But I mean, as long as it's safe and things like that, it's specifically designed for CO2 and smoke detection. Yes, you can use that. You say tenant has to be there, so they have to take off work to be there. That is a hardship. I imagine so. And again, maybe, thinking at times like this, we have to think outside the box. And if it comes down to like the last unit, I need this one unit, they work, or they're working this time and day, I don't see having a problem telling the inspector, hey, you know what, why don't you circle back on another Zoom appointment when it's convenient for that tenant and make it happen? I mean, again, we do have to be a little creative with it. It doesn't necessarily all have to be kind of conducted all in one day per se. The reason why I say that is because you can do the interior via virtual Zoom, on Monday, and on Wednesday, for example, the inspector can come out. And if you don't have any fencing or gating or security fences, the inspector, you give him permission to basically, he's going to tell you, I'm going to come on Wednesday, I'm going to do a walkthrough of the exterior. I don't need you to be present. I'm just going to look, I'm going to tell you if your rain gutter's falling off, or you need to fix this, this or that. They'll be able to do that as well. So I hope that helps. Let's see here, Julie. This is going to be the last question here, and then Zoom is going to kick us off. So I apologize I didn't get to you. I'm scrolling, and there's still a lot more. So this one's from Julie. How often do we expect these routine inspections? That's easy. Check the roster online and find out what tier you are. Based on your tier on that same website, you can see how many years this routine inspection is going to take place. It's a tier cycle system. Okay, so listen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to wrap the meeting here. I do apologize again for some of you who I didn't get to your question, but please feel free to pose your question to the MH program at sanjoseca.gov. It has been a pleasure chatting with you guys, relaying this information to you. If you still need clarification, this presentation will be available online, this recorded portion of my answers and questions, as well as the PowerPoint presentation. So having said that, I thank you, everybody, and stay tuned. We will advertise via the newsletter the next upcoming topic. If you have suggestions for that topic, feel free to drop an email and let us know. Okay, folks, have a nice day.